Welcome everybody to the Louisiana Dispute Resolution Options webinar. We're glad you're here. And this is about what happens when parents and schools disagree. So before we get started, I'm Wallace Johnson with Families Helping Families. I'm going to introduce Melinda Elliott, and she'll tell you a little bit about LeCan. And then I'll take over from there and do a part of it, and then she'll follow up with the ending part. Go ahead, Melinda.
Thank you, Wallace. So I turned on my camera so y'all can see I'm a real person, but I'm working from home and the internet just seems to behave better when I turn the camera off. But I definitely want y'all to see I'm real. That way when we see each other out at activities and events, we can notice each other. Oops. Wrong button. One of the things that I do at Families Helping Families is I'm an education specialist along with Wallace and Beryl. But the other thing that I do is I am the LeCan team leader. LeCan is a statewide grassroots advocacy organization. As we speak, they are putting together the legislative agenda for 2024. So we work on legislation where moms, dads, relatives, people with disabilities, people that care about people with disabilities, that work on positive systems change. We want people to live, work, play, do all the things that everybody else does in the community. Live in their own homes, go to their neighborhood school, all of those things. Things that we've worked on in the past was many, many, many years ago. I've been doing this a long time. We worked on getting more waiver services. There was very few and far between. Now there's probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in the system. We've gone from a system where you had to wait and wait and wait to a system where you can get a waiver slot in 3 months to a year if you know that your loved one or yourself are going to need one. Let's see, we worked on things in the school system. It's trickier in the school system. In the school system, if there's state or federal policy or law, of course you have to follow that first and foremost. But there are things that there hadn't been state or federal policy or law, like the April Dunn Act. At one point, the only way you got a diploma is if you were on a career track. Now you can be, if you were on a college track, now you can be on a career track and get your high school diploma. That is major for kids receiving special education services. Then there's things like restraints and seclusion and behavioral interventionists, outside behavioral interventionists being allowed in the school. But that's it. Home and community-based waivers and education. I try to lead a team of roughly 700 people to advocate, to educate legislators. What are you doing when you sign up for LeCan? Well, you go to that hot link. When you get a copy of this PowerPoint, it'll be a hot link, or I believe Wallace has already linked it in the chat, because I keep seeing my chat blinking. And Wallace, is great to do things like that. It doesn't cost you anything to join. You become part of that team, that local team of roughly 700 of us. You're signing up to get emails. Now, of course, when you get the emails, I'm going to be asking you if you can contact your legislator, phone, email, however you can contact them, to let them know about specific issues and if that issue is important to you and why. And hopefully that education is going to help them make a better decision about the different bills that come up in front of them. But yeah, that's my main goal. They don't want to hear from me. They hear from me. Believe me, they hear from me. They want to talk to their constituents. Some of y'all are going to have a story about how a particular issue affects you, and I'll help you craft that story, about 3 minutes worth. So it's got to be impactful, and I can help you. And you can use that story in a bunch of places. We have individual visits with legislators where we have constituents go with us to see their legislator when at all possible. We have a legislative roundtable every year that's usually well attended. Both of our senators attended last year, both of the senators in Southwest Louisiana. Some from Southwest Louisiana have gone to Baton Rouge and testified in front of committees on about a variety of issues. But that's not the end all and the be all. I need people locally that talk to their legislators about issues important to them. So y'all sign up. I would appreciate it. And I believe Wallace gets the first section of this webinar today. Wallace?
Thank you, Melinda. Now we're going to go over learning goals. And like Melinda said, I'm Wallace Johnson with Families Helping Families. So feel free at any time if you have questions for us to use the chat box or contact us with later after this webinar is over. We'll have our contact information on the PowerPoint, and we'll be emailing this out to everyone, and as well as other resources at the end of the webinar. So please watch for this, a follow-up email later on this afternoon. So our learning goals today is we have a lot to cover in this training. It's about the special education dispute resolution system, that it's designed to ensure that all students with disabilities are provided a free, appropriate public education. And the Louisiana Department of Education is committed to assisting schools and parents in their efforts to resolve disagreements in the least adversarial manner as possible. The Louisiana Department of Education encourages parents and or other concerned individuals to first contact their school districts or their director or supervisor of special education before utilizing the state level dispute resolution processes. The Louisiana Department of Education has developed several processes for resolving disagreements about the provision of free appropriate public education, payment for services obtained, or a child's eligibility or evaluation level of services or placement. The learning goal for our training is to have a deeper understanding of frequently used acronyms and terms used in the dispute resolution process. It's IEP facilitation, formal complaint, early resolution process, formal complaint investigation, mediation, due process hearing, resolution meeting process, and due process hearing procedures, and the Louisiana Department of Education's resources for dispute resolution. Throughout this presentation, we're going to use acronyms. So I want to, let you know that they're on the slide. You should see them. So this first one we have is the Local Education Agency, LEA. That stands for the Local Education Agency, or it's also known as the school system. The BESE, BESE, is the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. LDE is Louisiana Department of Education. And IDEA is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. IEP is Individualized Education Program. FAPE, Free Appropriate Public Education. ERP is Early Resolution Process. ALJ is also known as Administrative Law Judge. And CADRE is the Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution in Special Education. If you have a child who's receiving special education services, you're more than likely to be involved with your child's school and your child's teachers, including planning and reviewing and accessing your child's educational program. Over time, you will learn, or you will have learned, how to communicate, negotiate on your child's behalf. While your knowledge and skill and confidence will naturally increase, there are some specific communication skills that can help you be most successful in developing and maintaining a strong partnership with your child's school. Your passion as a parent can help you communicate brilliantly, and sometimes it can overtake you. But before we get into dispute resolution options, we want to make sure you're ready to take that next step. The Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution Special Education, CADRE, has published a brochure on steps to success in communicating with your child's school. So the first step is to be mindful of your emotional pressure gauge as you work with your child's school. If you expect to have difficulty when meeting with school personnel, your mind and body will be primed for battle. So how can you communicate successfully if you're on the verge of overflowing in anguish or outrage? Step 2 is to prioritize and plan. What is the most important thing that needs to be accomplished for your child? You want to make a list of the issues, questions, and possible solutions, and then rank them. Step 3, listen actively or try to understand the other person's perspective. If you don't understand what someone is saying, tell him or her. Be direct. Listen attentively to understand, not to respond. Stay on the topic being discussed. Clarify your statement. If you see a puzzled expression on someone's face, ask for clarification in return. Paraphrase or restate so that you and others are clear in your understanding. Step 5, have options in mind and offer them for discussion as needed. As a parent, you are in good position to present alternative solutions that might not occur to those who work for the school. Use statements like, let's brainstorm some possibility, or how about we try this? 6, you're only human as your school team. If someone has been particularly helpful, acknowledge their efforts. And if by chance you make a mistake or cause an offense, say you're sorry. Making an apology says you're human and helps humanize what's often a formal process. A link to the steps to success in communicating for your child's school will be located in the resource slide at the end. IEP facilitation is available to parents and school districts. Typically, an IEP facilitator is brought in when parents and schools and district staff are having difficulties in communicating with one another in regards to the needs of the student. An IEP facilitator assists in creating an atmosphere for fair communication and also oversees successful drafting of an IEP for the student. Either the parent or the school district can request IEP facilitation. However, since the process is voluntarily for both sides must agree to participate. The process can be initiated by request to the legal division, and the services it provided at no cost to the parent or the school district. Now let's take a look at where you're going to find information that you'll need for IEP facilitation. First, you're going to go to LouisianaBelieves.com. This is the Louisiana Department of Education's website. Then on the home page, under the quick links, you're going to see a blue arrow pointing to students with disabilities. And then when you go there, this is the landing page for students with disabilities. And then the formal, excuse me, I'm tongue-tied. Information on dispute resolution options are located on the upper left-hand side of the page where you see the blue arrow. Then it'll take you to the dispute resolution page for the Louisiana Department of Education. And then you're going to see the blue arrow on the far right side of the page, and it'll point to IEP facilitation request form. This is a one-page form from you or the school district that you would need to complete. As you see, they request a little personal information, a little background information, and some available dates. This is the second page of the form. It's just where you would do your signature and inform them if you have any special needs. You can inform them if you have accessibility needs, translation needs, or interpreter needs. They also inform you that you need to be prepared to be there for at least 3 hours. And then you will need to print this out, sign it, or either mail it in, or fax it in, or email it as directed. But please note the red box that says submit request does not submit the request. So again, you'll need to print it out, sign it, and either mail it, fax it, or email it as directed. Parents of children with disabilities may file an informal complaint. The implementation of the informal complaint early resolution process, ERP, draws on the traditional model of parents and schools districts working together cooperatively in the interest of children to achieve shared goals of meeting the educational needs of students with disability. Informal complaints may be made to the Louisiana Department of Education directly or to the school district. To submit an informal complaint to the Louisiana Department of Education, please email specialeducation@la.gov. Informal complaints made to the Louisiana Department of Education shall only be made through the Louisiana Department of Education's intake coordinator or coordinators, who shall refer the complaint to the early resolution process representative of the school district immediately, if possible, but not later than 2 calendar days after receiving the complaint. Within 15 days of filing an informal complaint, the parent and the school district shall sign a resolution agreement or an agreement in writing to extend the resolution period. If no resolution agreement or extension agreement is signed, the school district's ERP representative shall provide the parent with a description of the Louisiana Department of Education's dispute resolution options acknowledged by written receipt. Now we're going to launch a poll. And so I'm going to try to see if I can launch that. Let's see. I'm looking for it. Here we go. And you should see the poll on the screen. There's one question. It says, for formal complaint, the alleged violation must have occurred not more than a blank prior to the date of the complaint is received. So your answers are A, 6 months, B, 1 year, C, 2 years. And so you can put your appropriate answer. And by the way, when you participate in the polls, it's anonymous, so we won't know how you answer. And we'll give you a few seconds to complete it. Okay. All right. We're fixing to close the poll. All right. We're going to end the poll. And the correct answer is B. You have 1 year. So let's learn more about the formal complaint now. A parent, adult, student, individual, or an organization may file a signed written complaint by U.S. mail, facsimile, email, or TDD with the Louisiana Department of Education. Formal administrative complaints procedures are developed under the supervisory jurisdiction of the Louisiana Department of Education to address allocations that a school district is violating a requirement of Part B of IDEA. Formal complaints must be written and signed unless the parties have already attempted an informal early resolution on the same issues. The complaint will be forwarded to the school district for an opportunity for a local level resolution through the ERP before the complaint investigation. The party filing the complaint shall forward a copy of the complaint to the school district or public agency serving the student at the same time the party files the complaint with the Louisiana Department of Education. The complaint must allege that a violation that occurred not more than 1 year prior to the date of the complaint is received. The Louisiana Department of Education will provide the school district with an opportunity to respond to the complaint or recommend a proposal to resolve the complaint through the ERP or mediation. Upon expiration of the 15-day resolution period, the complaint is reviewed and the school district is required to provide a response and supporting information to the investigator. Depending on the nature of the complaint, the Louisiana Department of Education may conduct an on-site visit. The complainant is given the opportunity to provide additional information to the Louisiana Department of Education, either orally or in writing during the course of the investigation. All relevant information is reviewed and a determination is made as to whether the school district is violating a requirement of applicable federal or state statutes, regulations, or standards. The Louisiana Department of Education has 60 days from the receipt of the complaint or 45 days from the end of the early resolution process period to issue a written decision to all parties, each on the allegations in the complaint. Now let's look at where you'll find the information you need to request a formal complaint. So again, we're going to go first to the Louisiana Believes website, and then we're going to click over to where it shows the links for the blue arrow that's pointing to students with disabilities. And then next, you're going to see the landing page for students with disabilities. And then you're going to click where it says dispute resolution options. This is located on the upper left-hand side of the page where you see the blue arrow. And then you're going to see the dispute resolution options page. And then on the far right side of the page, under hot topics, you're going to see the blue arrow that's pointed to the formal complaint form. And then when you click that, the form is going to appear. This is page 1 of this request for special education formal complaint investigation. You can see it's a lot similar to the IEP facilitation request in regards to the personal information. However, there's a big difference but with the formal complaint investigation. The blue arrow you see on the form is pointed to a box that asks you to describe the problem or nature of the dispute. You want to put what are the relevant facts, significant people, dates, and or events, and do you have a proposal or a resolution for the stated dispute or problems? And additionally, they ask if you have any document that the investigator should review that supports the allegations. If you do, you're going to need to use an exhibit list. The second page is just to inform you where you sign and if you have any special needs. This is where you can inform them if you have accessibility need, translation need, or interpreter need. And on page 2, what you're looking at, there's a gold arrow, and the gold arrow is where the part of the complaint where you're going to notify the school district. You will have to include the date you notified the school district. That's where the arrow is pointed. It says 1. It's got a 1 on it, the golden arrow. And then there's another golden arrow 2. This is where you sign the complaint. And then there's the parentheses, and this is where you check off all the information that you're submitting. You'll check the necessary information. Part of this information is the detailed information about when, where, and how the alleged violation took place and your proposed solution. You can also notify the Louisiana Department of Education if you're going to need a translator, interpreter, or other accessible needs. Again, you'll need to print this out, sign it, and either mail it or fax it or email it as directed. And please note the red box that says submit does not actually submit the request. Okay, now we're going to launch another poll. And so let me pull the
Hey,
poll
it's
up.
supposed to be my turn, Wallace.
Okie dokie. All right, I'll start the poll. I was thinking I had to finish the poll.
No, because this poll is about mediations. So I get to start with the poll. The poll is mediations are voluntary for A, parents, B, school, or C, both parents and schools. Let me know when you're ready to close, Wallace.
Okay. All right, we're fixing to close. All right, let me see. Okay. All right.
We're closed?
Yep.
So the correct answer is C. Both parents and schools must agree to do a mediation. So let's learn a little bit more about the mediation process. Mediation is available to resolve a disagreement between parents and the school districts regarding the identification, evaluation, placement, services, or the provision of FAPE to a child with a disability. Parents or school districts may request mediation before, at the same time, or after requesting a due process hearing or complaint investigation. Requesting mediation won't prevent or delay a due process hearing or complaint investigation, and participating in mediation will not impair or waive any other rights of the parents. Mediation is a method for discussing and resolving disagreements between parents and school districts with the help of an impartial third person. That person has been trained in effective mediation techniques. Mediation is a voluntary process, and all the parties have to agree to participate in order for the mediation session to occur. The mediation sessions are scheduled in a timely manner and held in a location that's convenient to the parties in the dispute. Mediation services are provided by the Louisiana Department of Education at no cost to the parents and the school districts. A mediator doesn't make decisions. He or she facilitates discussion and decision making. The discussions in a mediation session are confidential and may not be used as evidence in subsequent due process hearings or civil court proceedings. If the mediation process results in full or partial agreement, the mediator will prepare a written mediation agreement that must be signed by both parties. In addition to describing agreements made in the course of mediation, the mediation agreement will state that all discussions that occurred during the mediation are confidential and may not be used as evidence in a due process hearing or civil court proceeding. The signed agreement shall be legally binding on both parties and enforceable in a court of competent jurisdiction. In order to initiate the process, a parent or a school district must send a request for mediation to the legal division of the Louisiana Department of Education. So it's going to be a whole lot similar to what Wallace has been showing you before. You'll go to www.louisianabelieves.com. That's the Louisiana Department of Education's website. On the home page, under Quick Links, you'll see the blue arrow that's pointing to students with disabilities. Then you're at the landing page for students with disabilities. And information on dispute resolution options is located in the upper left-hand side of the page where you see the blue arrow. Next, you're going to end up at the dispute resolution page for the Louisiana Department of Education. Then over on the right side of the page under Hot Topics, you're going to see my blue arrow, Mediation Request Form. This is page 1 of the form you or the school district would need to complete. As you see, they request your personal information, little background information, and some available dates. It's way similar to the IEP facilitation request form. The second page is your signature, and you inform them if you have any special needs. It might be accessibility needs, translation needs, interpreter needs. This one too tells you need to be prepared to be there for 3 hours. You need to print this out, sign it, mail, fax, or email it as directed. That red box doesn't mean you're submitting it. Only the parent of a child with a disability, an attorney representing the parent, or a school district may request due process hearing regarding the student with a disability. A due process hearing is a formal proceeding in which evidence is presented to an independent hearing officer to resolve a dispute between the parents of a child with a disability and the school district regarding the identification, evaluation, eligibility, placement of, or provision of a free, appropriate public education to a child with a disability. A request for a due process hearing must be made within 1 year of the date that the alleged action forming the basis of the hearing request was known or should have been known. That 1 year limit does not apply if the parents were prevented from requesting the hearing because the school district specifically misrepresented that it had resolved the problem, or the school district withheld pertinent information from the parent that it's required to provide under IDEA. To request a due process hearing, parents or school districts must submit a signed written request with the required information to the Louisiana Department of Education. Attention Legal Division, P.O. Box 94064, Baton Rouge, Louisiana 70804. The request must also be provided to the responding party. So the request also must be provided to the school system. The written request has to include the requester's name, address, and telephone number, the child's name, address, if different, the name of the child's resident school district, and the school district the child attends. It also needs a statement of the reason for the hearing request, including a description of the problem and a statement of the facts relating to the problem, and a proposal for a resolution to the problem to the extent known. A request for a due process hearing won't be processed unless it contains all of the information listed above. Once a request for a hearing is received, the Louisiana Department will issue an acknowledgement of receipt and forward with the request to the Division of Administrative Law. That's an independent state agency that conducts due process hearings for the Louisiana Department of Education. The Division of Administrative Law will assign an administrative law judge. They say ALJ for short, if you hear that acronym. But they'll assign the administrative law judge to the case. He or she will be provided with a copy of the hearing request. Otherwise, that request is confidential. The administrative law judge will then coordinate a pre-hearing conference to discuss the hearing process and establish a schedule for activities related to the hearing. The school district is required to convene a resolution meeting within 15 days of the receipt of a request for a due process hearing. If the parent and the school district have not resolved the due process complaint within 30 calendar days of receipt of the request, the due process hearing timeline begins. The 45 calendar day timeline for an issuing a final decision begins at the expiration of the 30-day calendar day resolution period. The parent and the school district may agree in writing to waive the resolution session or to use the mediation process instead of conducting a resolution meeting. If the resolution session is waived, the 45-day hearing timeline begins on the date of the waiver. The parties will not be able to raise issues at the hearing that weren't included in the hearing request unless the other party agrees to allow the addition of new issues. Both parties have the right to be accompanied and advised by legal counsel and by individuals with knowledge and training with respect to special education or the problems of students with disabilities. Both parties have the right to present evidence, confront, cross-examine, and compel attendance of any witnesses. Both parties have the right to prohibit the introduction of any evidence at the hearing that had not been disclosed 5 business days prior to the meeting. Both parties have the right to separate the witnesses so they don't hear other witnesses' testimony. And both parties can be provided with an interpreter if appropriate. The parent also has certain rights. In addition, so the parent has the right to decide whether the child who's the subject of the hearing will attend the hearing. The parent has the right to have the hearing open or closed to the public. The parent has the right to obtain a written or electronic verbatim transcript of the proceedings, as well as a written or electronic copy of the administrative law judge's written decision, including findings of fact, conclusions, and orders, and they have a right to get this without cost. Before the hearing, the parent's entitled to a copy of the child's education record, including all tests and reports upon which the school's proposed action is based. The parent has the right, at least 5 business days before the date of the hearing, the parent and the school district have to disclose to each other the evaluations each intends to use in the hearing. Copies of all the evaluations and recommendations based on those evaluations must be exchanged by that deadline. If either the parent or the school district fails to make these disclosures on time, the hearing officer can bar the evidence from the hearing. If there's an evaluation underway and it hasn't been completed, it's necessary to inform each other and the hearing officer. The decision of the hearing officer is made on substantive grounds based on a determination whether the school provided the child with a free, appropriate public education. If the request for a hearing includes or is based on alleged procedural violations, the hearing officer may find the child did not receive a free, appropriate public education only if he or she finds that the procedural violations occurred and they impeded the child's right to a free, appropriate public education. They significantly impeded the parent's opportunity to participate in the decision-making process regarding the provision of free, appropriate education, and or they deprived the child of educational benefit. As part of his or her decision and order, the administrative law judge can order the school district to comply with procedural requirements. The independent hearing officer must conduct the hearing and mail the parent and the school district a written decision within 45 calendar days from the end of the resolution period. The 45-day timeline may be extended if the independent hearing officer grants a request for a specific extension of time from the parent or the school district. The independent hearing officer's decision is final and the orders must be implemented unless the parent or the school district files a civil action in the state or federal court of competent jurisdiction within 90 days of receipt of the notification of the findings and decision of the hearing officer. The Louisiana Department of Education is responsible for the cost of conducting the hearing. Both parties are responsible for the costs of their participation in the hearing. So that's things like witness fees, attorney's fees, costs of copying, things like that. As part of his or her decision and order, the administrative law judge may order the school district. Oh, didn't I already say that? Yep, I think I already said that one. Oh, cool. Let's do the next poll. You ready, Wallace? Wallace? Did I lose Wallace? Okay, so let's go ahead and talk our way through this one. The poll is the Louisiana Department of Education is responsible for the following costs in a due process hearing. I have A, witness fees and attorney fees. Oh, there he is. Nope, that's the wrong poll. Okay. The Louisiana Department of Education is responsible for the following costs for the due process hearing. We have A, witness fees and attorney fees, B, only witness fees, and C, neither witness nor attorney fees. Let me know when we're done with the poll, Wallace. I was going to get everybody to tell me what they thought in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, is it up?
Yes, I saw it. Yes, sir. Are we done with it?
I guess we are.
Okay. So let's go to the answer. The correct answer is C. The Louisiana Department of Education is responsible for the costs of conducting the hearing. Both parties are responsible for the cost of their participation in the hearing, like witness fees, attorney fees, copying. And there's Section 300.517 of IDEA. That's a section of the law, and we can give that to you at a later point if you need it. But it allows for the awarding of reasonable attorney fees as part of the cost to the prevailing party, who's the parent of a child with a disability, to the prevailing party, who's the State Department of Education or local education agency, and against the attorney or parent if the parent's request for due process was presented for any improper purposes. And it's a little bit more complicated than that. So, like I said, you want to consult, go back and get the right numbers from us and go back to the law and consult the law. So, similar to the things that Wallace has done before, let's look at where you'll find the information you need to request the due process hearing. You want to go to www.louisianabelieves, that's what's an S, by the way, .com. That's the Louisiana Department of Education website. And you want to go down to the area where you see my blue area. It's under quick links. And it's pointing to students with disabilities. Then you want this is the landing page for students with disabilities, but you want to look at the top left-hand corner, dispute resolution options, where you see my blue arrow again. And then that's going to bring you to the dispute resolution page for the Louisiana Department of Education. If you go over to the far right of the page, under Hot Topics, where you see my blue arrow, you're going to see Due Process Hearing Request. And this is page 1 of the Request for Special Education Due Process. It's similar to the formal complaint form request in regards to personal information. Just like the formal complaint, the blue arrow on the form is pointing to a box that asks you to describe the problem or the nature of the dispute. You want to put in relevant facts, significant people, dates, and or events. And then do you have a proposal or resolution for the stated dispute or problems? Additionally, they ask you if you have any documents the investigator should review that support those allegations. And you're going to need to use an exhibit list if you have documents. Then the second page is your signature, and you tell them if you have special needs, like accessibility needs, transportation needs, or interpreter needs. Page 2 also requires the same type of assurances. Part of the requirement under due process is for the party requesting it to notify the other party. You're going to have to include this information where the gold arrow is with the number 1. Then you need to sign the complaint where the number 2 gold arrow is. That's where you'll check off that you're submitting all the necessary information. Part of that information is the detailed information about when, where, and how the alleged violation took place and your proposed solutions. You can also notify the Louisiana Department of Education if you're going to need a translator, interpreter, or some other accessibility need. Just like all the other times, you have to print this out, sign it, mail it, fax it, or email it. That red box does not submit it. So everything we went over on this training can be found in the following resources. There's a place called the Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution in Special Education. I should say a website. It's called Cadre. And then the Louisiana Department of Education Dispute Resolution page. Additionally, we have another resource on active living skills. That's going to be important regardless if you use one of the dispute resolution options or you just try to work things out without going through a dispute resolution option. If you need an additional support on your parental rights or any other education issue, you can contact us at 1-800-894-6558 toll free. Or if you're in Lake Charles, you can call us locally at 337-436-2570. It's on this slide when you get this. You can also email us at info@FHFSWLA.org. We have lots of great information on our social media channels. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can like us, follow us, share our posts, and retweet us. Our website also has a lot of great information. If you want to be added to our newsletter list and find other great resources, go to our website. So, I'm sure Wallace is putting the link to our evaluation in the chat box. Please complete the evaluation. Your responses are taken seriously, and they help us improve the quality of our trainings and your experience. Evaluations are required by all our funders, and we just really appreciate it. We get extra points if we get evaluations. Please complete your evaluation so we can continue to provide trainings like this free of charge. It's going to take you less than 2 minutes. Everyone's that registered is going to get a copy of the PowerPoint and I think the handout that I talked about. If you're participating and didn't officially register, let me know at this time. You can put it in the chat box so Wallace can get your information and you can get your own copy of the PowerPoint. So now we've gone through what happens when parents and schools disagree, the Louisiana Special Education dispute resolution options, and we hope you've learned some helpful information. But if you have questions that haven't been answered, you can drop it in the chat box right now. You can email it to me. You can email it to Wallace. You can email it to the info address. So do I have anything in the chat box that I need?
Not that I can see.
Great. Well, I appreciate everybody that attended. We'll give it a minute or so for everybody to be able to click that link and do the evaluation. But thank y'all.